All right, shooting on film versus shooting digitally here in 2023. That is the topic of conversation today, but first, welcome to the channel. My name is Troy Mayers. I am pumped to have you here. I'm excited to be making vids here on YouTube. It's been a minute since we've gotten to hang out. I just got back from an expedition up towards the Arctic Circle in northern Canada. Now, on an expedition like that, you have to really take into consideration the size and the weight of the gear you take with you, as well as powering options, because there really wasn't power where we were going. So those considerations really led me to this idea for an experiment, if you will. I was going to take just 2 cameras with me in a very minimalistic setup. I was going to bring 1 digital camera and 1 film camera. And every single day, no matter what was happening, I was going to alternate between those 2 tools. And I wanted to see how the different tools influenced and affected the imagery that I was capturing that day. Before we dive into some of the results, let's do a mini what's in my camera bag sesh for this expedition. I love getting to see what you guys shoot with. I get way too excited about camera gear in general. So let's talk about it. We took 2 cameras with us, 1 digital, 1 film. The digital camera I had was the Canon R7, outfitted with the RF3518. I had 3 additional batteries for it, 2 128 gig pro grade B90 cards. From an audio perspective, I'm actually using a Comica VM30. It's something that Comica sent over. I'm testing it out right now. That made it into the bag on this expedition, as well as a Peak Design travel tripod, the aluminum version. On the film side of things, I had the Canon F1 with the FD 50mm 1.4 lens on the front of that. This camera doesn't really need any additional batteries. There is one battery that can power the light meter inside of it, but that lasts like 2 years. Not needing batteries was a big reason why this experiment even existed. I was trying to figure out ways I could navigate not having a constant supply of power, so the film camera really not needing power to operate. That was a big pro, a big win for the film camera. But I didn't need to bring rolls of film with me. I brought 10 of them. I had 6 of them were Kodak Gold 200, and the other 4 were Ilford Delta HP5 400 speed film. So let's check it out. To where you are. I'd love to find out your thoughts down in the comments below. Were you able to tell the difference between the digital and the film photo before I flashed the answer on the screen? And probably more importantly, did you find yourself preferring one over the other? Now, this was a really interesting experiment for me as a shooter, and as a result, there's a couple things I observed. Yeah, I was pretty proud of that chapter title. I think it does a good job of illustrating the mindset shift that I felt as I was using these different tools, hunting versus gathering. I think that I was hunting, shooting on a film camera, gathering on a digital camera. Let me break that down a little bit, unpack it for you. Shooting on a film camera, I felt this gravity, this responsibility to make banger photos, to make cool images. I felt the responsibility to the medium because it is kind of a historic, classics form of shooting, kind of our predecessors, I wanted to honor that. I also felt the responsibility to my wallet because shooting on film was much more expensive, significantly more expensive than shooting on digital. So the responsibility was, if I was taking a photo, man, it needed to be a banger photo. It needed to be worthy of being captured, right? And that has an influence on the way that I was shooting. Now, in direct contrast to that, shooting on digital, it's like the Wild West out there, man. I was just snapping photos left and right, gathering up all these images in my image basket, and that's what I was going to take with me as the work for my expedition. And there's pros and cons to that style of shooting. What I found is that because I felt less responsibility to each individual photo, I spent less time on it, but I also was more willing to burn an image, to take a bad photo. I mean, there'd be times I'd even just blind fire my camera without looking through a viewfinder, the screen, adjusting my exposure, just hoping that maybe I might have got something as it happened in the moment. My photos took on much more of a candid style, if you will. Whereas shooting on film, I felt like each one needed to be a little bit more pointed. Shooting digitally, I didn't find myself actively seeking out cool compositions or cool rays of light as they were coming through. I was just experiencing life, and when something cool happened in front of me, I took a photo of it. This next observation is kind of interesting, and that's viewfinders. From the outset of my camera journey, I've always been more inclined towards filmmaking. I learned pretty quick I wasn't great at taking photos. So I leaned into being a filmmaker from the outset, and as a result, I've usually leaned on the LCD screen on the back of the camera or larger external monitors to compose my image. So I never really got into a habit of using a viewfinder. So the film camera posed a unique challenge in that there is no screen on a film camera to expose or compose your image. It's viewfinder or nothing. So as a result, I found that I spent more time composing my image like I touched on earlier, A, because of that responsibility towards shooting on film, but B, because I spent more time in the viewfinder. When you hold that camera up to your face, you're enveloped in your image. As opposed to shooting digitally on the back of a screen, all your peripherals are still at play and they're competing and distracting you from the image. So there really was something special that slows you down about looking through the viewfinder that I appreciated and noticed as a significant difference in shooting on film versus how I shoot digitally. Because the R7's got that tilty flip out screen, you can flip every which direction. That meant it was much easier for me to compose low shots, compose high shots. I'm 6.5 feet tall, so if I'm standing and I hold a viewfinder up to my face, I'm looking down on everybody. So I'm oftentimes shooting from my chest anyway, and that helps with that a little bit. I crouched a lot more shooting on film. So my composition on film ends up being, roughly 3 to 6 feet off the ground, and all my images kind of fit in that viewpoint. Whereas shooting digitally, I had a little bit more freedom with how I composed the images. I composed and put the camera in more places that I wasn't putting the film camera. So I've really come to appreciate things that are designed to do just one task, and to do that task just to the best of its ability. It seems like everything is multi-purpose these days. It's hybrid, it's whatever. Even my shampoo is like a 12-in-1. It's like I can wash my hair, my beard, my face. I could brush my teeth with it, use it as deodorant, use it as motor oil, like you name it. I don't know where we were going with that. But all that to say, I really appreciate that the film camera is just there to take photos. It really helps to eliminate a lot of other distractions, and I can just focus on the task at hand. And it's designed to take photos and do it really well. Everything is there to help aid you in the craft of taking a photo. What I found when I was shooting digitally is that there's so many other things that I can do on the R7 that they kind of distracted me. And this is also another reason I don't really like shooting on phones, is because there's so many distractions that are competing for your attention on a phone. But back to shooting digitally, this may sound silly, but the fact that the R7 could shoot photo and video, being a filmmaker first, I was often being distracted by wanting to take videos of things, and that's all good and well. It's why I have some of that footage that you guys saw earlier. But that was a distraction from the primary task at hand of taking photos. And there's something special about that. There really is. It created, at least in my mind, a much more focused and intentional shooting environment. And that's my observation. This is the part of the video where I contradict myself. Welcome. As much as I love and appreciate the singularity of the film camera, I can't overstate the value that the versatility of a digital system brings you. I was able to shoot both photo and video. I was able to capture audio. I was able to remotely operate the camera via my phone if I wanted to. All of those things give you true creative freedom. And if you're after true creative freedom, where you want the camera to be as transparent as possible between you and the final image, then digital is your answer. Which brings up an interesting point, and I want to talk about it a little bit, because I think, okay, I don't know where this is going to go. I think that creativity is the result of problem solving. I think that we as humans are wired to solve problems, and we do it really pretty creatively. We all solve those problems differently. So having true unlimited creative freedom could pose its own unique challenge that I'm going to call the blank page syndrome. If you sit down in front of a blank page and try to start drawing or writing, it's really hard to do because you've got unlimited boundaries. The potential is limitless. So there is something to be said for the fact that shooting on film, you're posed with some more limitations. It puts up a couple walls for you. And then as a photographer, as a creative, you get to either break through those walls, get over those walls, bounce off those walls, and it gives you a bit of a foundation to spark your creativity. I've always treated my cameras like tools. I'm not one to really baby my equipment, and that's probably not the right thing to do, or nor would I recommend it, but here we are. So both of these cameras got handled identically. They got strapped to my body and they went with me anywhere that I went, and as a result, they were exposed to the elements. They got jostled around a little bit, they got bumped, they got splashed with a little bit of water every now and again. It's just kind of the nature of the beast on this type of trip. They both held up really well. I wasn't afraid that either one was going to break, so that's great that we have these tools at our disposal to create cool images, right? But there was an element of handling when it came to the film camera that I just loved, and I'm gonna have a hard time conveying that, but I'm gonna do my best. This is my next observation. There was something about the mechanical nature of the film camera that was just truly inspiring, whether it was actually winding the film spool or, more importantly than that, the mechanical actuation of the shutter. When you press that shutter, you feel that leaf drop, you feel it reverberate through the camera. There is something really special about that just gets my heart bumping. I loved it. And it really just ignited this drive to take photos. And I just didn't feel that on the digital camera. There wasn't anything tactile or analog about it. I didn't feel quite as connected. There was a certain, like, you know, in Avatar when they like connect their hair with their horse situation, that's exactly what was happening when I would put that film camera strap around my neck. We were connected in a very tangible way. That was really weird. I'm very sorry. And probably one of the biggest differences between the two is post-processing. Digital's awesome. Like I said earlier, I was able to play back through and check out the images that I captured immediately while I was on the hillside. While I was in a boat, I could take a look and see what I captured. I could make sure that I actually got it in the can. Exposure and focus was right. If I needed to, I could take 15 more of those to make sure I got it. So that was, you know, one real element of it. And then once I got back to civilization, I could take that card out, pop it in my laptop, edit these, and before I got home, I could post up, you know, 5 different photos from the trip on Instagram. It was quick. It was instant gratification. Now, on the film side of things, that wasn't the story. Once I took that photo, I didn't know if I got the image or not. I didn't know if I got the image once I got back to our base camp. I didn't know when I got home. I didn't know a week after I got home if any of those photos were gonna turn out. And that sounds like it sucks, and in a way it does. But there's something invigorating about that anticipation of just excitedly refreshing your inbox, waiting for the film lab to say, hey, your images have been scanned in, come check them out. And I dropped everything I was doing to finally see my work come to fruition. And that was me falling in love with the process all over again. Okay, I've said a lot of words. We need to bring this to a close. Should you be shooting on digital or film here in 2023? My answer is yes. You really should shoot on both, which is not an answer at all, I realize. Let me tell you what I'm gonna do. For the most part, I'm going to be shooting digitally, if for no other reason than the versatility as well as the expense. It is just much more expensive to be shooting on film to get it processed and all that jazz. That being said, there was a defining moment for me in the trip where I knew what the answer was, barring any other restrictions like cost. We're out on our trip. There was a scene that plays out in front of me that I knew I wanted to capture. I wanted to photograph. I reached down for my camera. I pull it up, and I'm bummed to learn that today was digital camera day, that all I had with me was my digital camera. I really wanted to capture this on film. So I've got one final observation to really round out this experiment, and it's this. There wasn't a time I was holding a film camera that I wished I had a digital one in my hands. There is something that is just inherently special about the organic nature that is shooting on film. There's a relatable humanness to it that will never be able to be duplicated, replicated, digitized, or automated. So if I'm saying anything, in a world of AI and generative fill, be different, be human, be imperfect, be uniquely you. Thanks for watching. Happy shooting. God bless.